Okay, good morning, everyone. We'll give everybody a few minutes to get in. Thanks for taking some time to join us at the Aspire Snow Summit. We'll get started in just a couple minutes. As you're coming in, why don't you go ahead and let us know that you're here in the on the stage, and say good morning on the chat to the right. Morning, Tia. Morning, John. Morning, Mike. And I can't keep up anymore, so good morning, everyone. All right, people are continuing to roll in here. We're going to go ahead and get started. First and foremost, thank you all for joining us. A couple tips as we're getting started here. One, if you're not actively chatting, you don't want to see the chat. Up in the top right corner between the time and there's a little icon that will push that over to the right and make the screen just a little bit bigger. So you can hide that chat window if you want. A couple tips to make this event great. One, turn your out of office message on, right? Act like you've actually traveled to the Aspire Snow Summit and you're going to spend the next couple of days with us. Have your lunch delivered. We got a long day of training and events all day today, including some really good stuff at lunch that Kevin's going to be sharing with us again. So go ahead and get that lunch order in. And make sure you plan on sticking around all the way to the end. We're wrapping up today with some roundtable topics for a lot of Aspire clients, and some of our vendor partners are going to be sharing some best practices there. You'll get a chance to actually join and sit down at the table with them. So make plans to join us there. And finally, take some good notes. You may want to have an old pad of paper to take notes on, since we're virtually on this conference together. Might be just a bit easier. A quick thank you to all of the sponsors that have made this possible for us. We've got some great partners, and you'll have an opportunity to touch base with them at the Vendor Expo this afternoon between 1 and 3 p.m. Central. But thank you to Greenius, Fleet Sharp, High Touch Technologies, Card Connect, Snow and Ice Management Associations here with us as well, Integrated Payroll Services, and Midwest Salt. We couldn't do this without them. They've got, a lot of them have promo videos out that you can check out at any time. But again, 1 to 3 this afternoon Central, they'll be in their booth. You can touch base with them. At this point in time, without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Kevin. He's going to share some words to get us started this morning. Welcome, everybody.
Hey, thanks, Travis. Let me know if my screen shows up so people can see the PowerPoint. And are we good?
We are good.
Fantastic. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Aspire Virtual Snow Summit. Kind of an odd thing given the odd times. Travis has already thanked our sponsors, which I would have done, but I think most importantly, I want to thank our people for putting this together. If you've never done one of these things, it is no easy task, right? Face-to-face always seems much more powerful. But we have a couple of days of what we think is important stuff for you to learn and know, etc. And I'm going to lay some of that out and give you some ideas of where we're going. It's interesting. When I started in the industry in 1989, the snow business was something entirely different than what it is today. In fact, it was wildly profitable. I had clients that made in excess of 75% on the GP line. That's something that doesn't happen that often or that much. In fact, I had a client who decided at that point in time in the early 90s that why, given his numbers, would he continue in landscape, because he was making so much in snow. And he took that concept a step further, sold his landscape business, and now, still today, the only thing he does is snow. What's changed? Well, a couple things have changed, certainly. Customers. Back then, they weren't nearly as aware or had as much control, and they were just happy the snow and ice disappeared. Number two, the cost of everything has gone up, and not just the cost, the availability of it, from chemicals and salt to people to crews, etc. Your asset investment, there's been more specialized equipment produced, made, right, to help everyone manage those increased costs, right? So the acquisition of that and then the sitting of that from anywhere from 6 months to 8 months every year, right, and imposes an additional cost on everyone else also. Then there's liability, right? Your customers like to pass on their slip and fall to you, so you have to purchase the insurance and be at risk, damage at the end of the season when they force you to clean everything up, even if you didn't do it. And then, of course, everybody's in the game because it was so exciting to be in that game. And so pricing, of course, is one of the things that has taken those GP margins down to a level that is closer to what we call on earth. Now, I wanted to say a few things about why we're doing this and how we got into this business. Back about 7 years ago, when we conceptualized this company, we had an idea that we could change the way the industry looked at and used software. And the basic premise is that software is your system. It's not a separate thing. You have a procedure manual on the left side, you got your software on the right side. The two are together. And the thing that made that possible technically was cloud and mobile. And that's important, as you'll see in a moment. And when I say software is the system, it means everything gets collected there. The estimate feeds the schedule, feeds the purchase, feeds the equipment, goes back to the estimate to be bid again, feeds payroll when the work is done, invoice, and all ends up at reporting. And that's the key to a system, right? A system is good for two things if it works well. Number one, it gives people, right, the railroad tracks, the system with which in to run so that they can be properly trained. And the biggest thing is to minimize failure, right? Because failure points exist everywhere in systemless worlds. The second is, for management, the ability to see. So we thought a system had to address a couple of big things. And this is particularly true in snow. Number one, thinning margins. We did a webinar not too long ago on the industry average net profit, right? And it's around 6%. And that starts right up at the top with gross margins. Number two, talent shortages, not just at the crew level, but also, more importantly in my mind's eye, at the middle management level. And then, of course, competitiveness, because everyone's in the game, and the chief impact of competitiveness typically shows up in pricing. Yes, it's true. There are people in 2020 who still do not truly understand their costs. And those who do often pay for that when it comes to contracting and the way contracts are written. We thought a system had to do three things super well. And these apply to snow, of course, as they do to landscape. Number one, crew productivity, right? The standard productivity level of crew, which is measured in hours applied to jobs, right, to actual work that could turn into a billing number, is somewhere less than 70%, right? But let's use 70%. That means that 3 out of every 10 hours paid aren't really truly being billed. That's not a sustainable number, right? That number should be closer to 85 to 90%. Management efficiency, even less productive, right? We're not an industry that's known for its management training prowess, right? The number of clients I've had over the years who had spent 20 years at IBM or working for General Electric and had learned the in and outs and the procedures and the methods of management, I could count on one or two hands maximum. So in other words, most of us got in the industry as owners because we understood the production or sales part of things. And we hired people who came out of schools or had similarly shared some of those same kinds of either interest or competencies, but very few of us have a lot of management training. Again, hours wasted, that number typically is around 60%. And that's a problem, right? Because the crew needs the managers to direct them, So crew productivity is a direct result of management efficiency, or in this case, inefficiency. And this is particularly true, right, when you don't have the pick of the crop sometimes from which to recruit and hire, is that you have to have a solution, a system of some sort that improves their efficiency by giving them the means, the tools, and the procedures within which to operate. Lastly, if nothing else, a system has to improve the customer's experience. What I mean by this is quite simple, right? If price is your only point of differentiation, you're in trouble, right? The experience the customer wants to have certainly is something where you're reliable, you're trustworthy, and they don't have to call you a lot. And if they need information, they can get information when they need that information, right? Otherwise, they're left in the dark. So part of a great system is not only for management to see, it's also for customers to see. Now, how does it all work? Well, number one is it relies on information. Management has to have information. Not just management, of course, but everyone at the point of attack has to have information. And this becomes really, really critical in the snow world. I'm not saying it's not difficult in the landscape world, but there's a lot less variables occurring in that world than in the snow world. I, over the years, have spent some time with crews as a consultant, actually spent half a day riding a zero-turn mower. I will never do that again. It was in July. I've been out on snow routes at midnight. That's even worse, in my opinion. And when I say worse, it's more challenging because the variables are changing so dramatically, so quickly, which means that information has to be used by leaders and managers for two primary purposes. Number one, because you can't control all the variables, you must be highly prepared. And I'm going to talk about that this afternoon, what that means and how that looks. And then even with preparation, if you lack accountability, then things still don't get done, and failure points occur at a rate that are unacceptable. And so accountability is directly linked to preparation. All those things are linked to information. So what do I mean by information? So this was our final part of our vision. When I think about what we've done over the last 7 years or so, the thing I'm most proud of course, is the system we continue to build, but our system is really becomes more excellent if you learn how to use it. And so that's why people like Travis and Brian, Kevin Larson, John Gohl, Greg Momberg, I could go through a long list of people, our Erin at our client support, right? All these people, right, are helping you with a system that is really good at collecting information, right? That's where you have mobile applications. Every time somebody puts something in the system, they create an estimate, they create a schedule, they make a purchase, they do an invoice, they tell you they arrived on site, right? You're collecting massive amounts of data every day, photos, pictures, estimates, notes on the system, GPS coordinates. Without the cloud, there's no possible way to store that easily because the amounts of data that are being collected are so huge compared to what was collected back in 1989 and 90 when people did it on paper and maybe even spreadsheets. And then the ability to take that information and retrieve it, right? That gives you the ability to see and the ability to stop what I call margin bleeding, right? Because margin bleeding is a drop by drop thing that happens in every event, right? I put down too much Salter Chem, or I don't put down enough Salter Chem. That creates return visits. I have to go back and spend the hours now to correct something that happened before because potentially the information wasn't there, or I didn't get any sort of notification that we had not put down the proper amount of salt. The subs don't show up. Somehow they didn't get tuned in to what was going on at a particular event, or they do show up and they don't do it right. And now I got people waiting around sometimes for orders to be given because something's changed on one site. We've had to reroute things because a truck broke down and they're not coming at this moment. Oh my God, the customer thinks the contract they signed was one way, right? zero tolerance. Turns out they signed a 1-inch minimum or something, right? But the customer's always right. Let me tell you something, Snow, the customer's not always right. Sometimes what they don't know, right, is some of the problem. Equipment breaks down, it gets damaged, right? All these things are happening in real time in a very fluid situation, which would challenge any system to address it, to minimize all the failure points that end up in cost, that end up in bleeding out dollars on the margin. I got the wrong equipment for the work on the site. It's not sufficient to do what's required, right? And that can change storm by storm, hour by hour, event by event. Hey, I thought 12 guys were going to show up. You told me they were. I've got 6 people here to do the shoveling. How's this going to work? And I don't even know their names. How am I going to clock them into the system to make sure that they get paid, right? And that I can actually bill what happened. And then, of course, every invoice gets questioned. And then if the answer's not applied, they just go unpaid. Of course, there's that great event that occurs sometime in April or May, depending on where you are, where every piece of damage on the property that happened that winter is your fault. And now we have to go deal and manage that because they've held out payment on the last couple of invoices. Lawsuits, right? Even if I don't have one, I have an overhang, right? That potentially it could be, so I have to manage that for myself all the time and worry that sometime later I might get hit with this. Wow, great business, right? It is a good business, right? The people who do it well want to do it well, and they want to do it with the best potential margins possible. So that's why we're here today. I'm going to talk about this at lunch, this thing called fog of war. It's a great definition in my mind's eye. Fog of war, the uncertainty and situational awareness experienced by participants in military operations, in battle. It's a term that it seeks to capture the uncertainty regarding one's own capability, the adversary's capability, and their intent they're engaged in. In other words, the fog of war means you can't see, and not being able to see or know means decisions don't get made because people don't feel as confident, right? That's the point of a great system, right? Is to give people in the fog of war, which I think Snow certainly qualifies, right? Because every event's going to be different, right? It's not the same. It's not like going out on landscape maintenance, right? So the ability to use a system to clear through that fog of war, to give people the confidence to operate, because you cannot control every aspect of every event. So what are we going to do for you? Our team is here the next couple of days. I think Travis talked you through that a little bit. There are roundtables, etc. So please do stick around. Best practices are a critical part of any system. We have sessions, right, to learn, understand, group discussion. We're going to talk about preparation and accountability. I'm doing that later today in a couple of 45-minute sessions. I think you'll find them interesting. I'm going to allude to not just some theory about those two things, but some actual world-class organizations and what they do. Marty Grunder is going to be with us, my great friend Marty, tomorrow to lead an expert panel. And then, of course, by the end, you don't want to miss this. We're going to talk about, our development team is going to share with you where we're going with the actual software, right? Features and functions. So with that, I want to welcome you to all that we're doing here. And Travis, if I could, I'd be happy to turn it back over to you if that works.
That's great. And Marty's back with us as well. And I think Marty's going to share a little bit about the expert panel that is happening tomorrow.
Well, hello, everybody. Hello, Kevin. How are you doing?
Hey, Marty.
I know I'm in the company of friends here, but Kevin, I got to compliment you and your team for what Aspire has specifically done for Grunder Landscaping. The change in our company just since the first of the year when we went live has been just amazing. When I was with you in Tempe there, I said that good managers make good decisions with good information. And the good information that we're getting to run this business, had we not had this tool together when the pandemic hit, we would have been screwed. Speaking of good information, we have an awesome panel discussion that I'm going to moderate tomorrow. Snow removal is something that we do here at Grunder Landscaping Company. We are about a $5.5 million a year primarily residential design, build, and maintenance firm. So snow is something that we're adding to our, we're growing it. And we've got an awesome panel discussion tomorrow. We have Mike Mayberry from Level Green Landscapes in Virginia. We have Josh Flynn from Seabreeze Property Services in Portland, Maine. We have Mike Ferris from Elevate Landscapes in Colorado. We have the lovely and talented Samantha Smith from Signature Landscapes in Kansas City. And then we've got Mike May from just up the road from me in Akron, Canton area from Todd Pugh's and Viruscapes. We've got a great discussion, Kevin and all that are joined here. We're going to talk a lot about how you can improve your snow removal services. Some of the things that we're going to talk about: how do you get customers on seasonal contracts? How do you do that? If this is your first year doing snow, what's the number one recommendation I need to take away from to help Aspire leverage my snow removal efforts? What are the best ways to mitigate the legal side, the slips and the falls, and a host of other questions. So I hope you'll join me tomorrow. I'll be at 1 o'clock. I promise for it to be energetic, and I think we'll make it worth your while, just like the rest of the conference. So elated to host that panel discussion tomorrow. And Kevin, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great, Marty. Thanks for coming on board and doing this with us. It's fantastic. I mean,
you're my man. Thank you.
You know, the challenges, you know, with the virtual conference is certainly energy, but it's also content, right? So again, I want to thank our team. I want to thank Marty for coming on board and doing that. And Travis, all yours, bud.
Yep. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Marty. Real quick, want to talk about what's happening immediately. So when we get done here in just a few minutes, we've got a couple of breakout sessions before we come back here at noon Central, when Kevin's going to talk about preparedness and that fog of war. So the first session begins at 10:15 Central. Second session begins at 11:15. You got three options for each of those. You can choose which session you want to go to. You can find those over on the left-hand side in the sessions that will pop up and be live, like the stage is right now at 10:15. We go find those sessions that are open. Also, as we are doing this, the best part of every conference, Spire may not like me saying that, but the best part is connecting with people at the conference, right? So there's tons of networking opportunities here on the Hopin site. You may see networking over on the left-hand side. We'll have a targeted time of networking this afternoon, but anytime you can click on the people list over on the far right-hand side and reach out to individuals directly, and of course be active in the chat and the polls. And then we want to take this one step further and get you active on your social media as well. So there's some instructions on the reception homepage. We'll be doing some different targeted events throughout the summit, but we're asking you to include the hashtags Aspire Snow Summit and hashtag Aspire Best Practice when you post to Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter, and be sure to @Aspire when you do those. And there's more instructions on the reception homepage for those details. But we're looking forward to seeing how you guys are all experiencing the summit and sharing good info when you run across it in the summits. A few tips. We talked about the icons on the far left-hand side. One other big thing, when you're in the sessions, right, you notice Kevin shared his screen today. If you double-click on that screen when it's shared in the sessions, that'll pop that up to a larger window, right? So you can see the screen more in a full screen way, and that will be very helpful for you as you are in the sessions. I'm sure your session host will remind you of that as we're going along. I think that's all we've got from here this morning, Brian, unless there's any questions or anything else we need to cover before we wrap things up and move on to the sessions here in just a little bit.
No, I think we're good, Travis. Thank you, Kevin and Marty and Travis, for getting everyone going. Thank you all for coming. And again, like Travis said, it's pretend like you're away at a conference, right? Spend the time here, learn as much as you can, participate as much as you can, network. Go to the expo to visit our sponsors. Lots of great sponsors with that can help you again make things more efficient and effective at your companies. That's why we've partnered with these people and have them here with us at the event today. So enjoy, have a good time, and we'll see you on the next meeting.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everyone. Top off that cup of coffee and be ready to go 10:15 Central. You got about 20 minutes. Check an email too, put that out of office on, fill up your coffee cup and be ready to go. If you have any questions, feel free to chat away, and we will see you shortly. Thanks.